Okay, everyone. So what I'm going to do here is finish up that last 5 minutes of the lecture that didn't get recorded in the system, right? Which I'm going to look at open market operation, purchase and sale, but this time by drawing money supply and money demand. So I'm actually this time with the graph, right? Which I said I was going to do at the end, and I was doing it, and it didn't get recorded. So I'm just using my iPad here, and the stylus no longer works for some reason. So I'm going to use my finger. So hopefully the writing is clear enough. Okay, so essentially we're going to look at an open market operation purchase. But let's start with the graph first, right? So imagine you have a graph that looks like this, and here you have real money. And over here you have the interest rate. You have the money supply curve, which is vertical. I call that MS1. And you have money demand MD0 in equilibrium in this economy. The interest rate is I1, and there's Q1 units of money in the economy. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this to one side. If I can, excuse me. Yeah, I'm just going to move this aside. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain the situation, right? So we want to see an open market operation purchase. Okay. So in this situation, given that interest rate, whatever it is, let's say it's 5%, and the Reserve Bank think it's too high, it wants to reduce the interest rate to boost economic activity, it will go to the commercial banks and buy back the government securities and give them money. So they have more money, which they will not keep in their bank account, but they will try to lend to customers in order to make profit and increase the money supply, right? So we said the RBA buys back government securities from the commercial bank. Let's just say ANZ. Doesn't matter which bank. Okay, so this will increase ANZ's reserves. Right? Basically, this will increase the amount of money ANZ has. Okay, so ANZ has more money. This is essentially going to be an increase in money supply. This is going to be an increase in money supply because ANZ is not going to let this excess reserve sit in its bank account at the RBA. It will take that money out and lend it to customers and make profits. Remember, they are in the profit business. So I'll move this over to one side. Bring this one back down. So they're going to increase the money supply. Let's show that. They're going to increase the money supply. ANZ has more money, they'll increase the money supply. Okay, so we are assuming no change in money demand. Indeed, the scenario doesn't give us any information on money demand, so we have no reason to believe money demand is changing in this scenario. So what you will then get is a new equilibrium. As supply increases, it's just like your topic 2, demand and supply. If supply increases and demand doesn't change, equilibrium price will fall. The price of money is the nominal interest rate, right? So you will move down from your original equilibrium, you will move down on the money demand curve to the new equilibrium. And at this new equilibrium, the interest rate has fallen. And because the interest rate has fallen, you are going to see the situation, right? The fall in the interest rate is going to lead to an increase in economic activity. And when you have more economic activity, people are going to borrow more money. People are going to borrow more money, and there'll be more money in the economy. So the graph is going to look like this. What is the explanation? Okay, for the explanation, I will make this smaller again, move it to one side, and I'll bring this back here. So what is the explanation? Again, given no change in money demand, so an increase in money supply and no change in money demand, we can see from the graph that this reduces the nominal interest rate, including a fall in the cash rate. We didn't really look at the cash rate, but the cash rate is the shortest term interest rate, right? And I mentioned in the lecture, if the cash rate falls, all other interest rates will fall in the same direction. So the cash rate is also falling. Anyway, as the interest rate is falling, the falling interest rate is going to mean it's cheaper to borrow money. So consumers will borrow more money. So consumption will increase. Businesses will borrow more money. So investments will increase. As consumption and investment increase, output will increase, right? Which is GDP. Okay? Because Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. As consumption goes up, right, it's cheaper to borrow money, so consumers will borrow money and buy a new car, for example, and businesses will invest more because they can expand their operations. Output will go up. As these things happen, as output goes up, there's more economic activity. More economic activity will lead, right? More economic activity will lead to an increase in the quantity demanded. An increase in the quantity demanded, and in equilibrium will lead to an increase of money in the economy. Okay. So now what I will do is repeat this entire process, exactly the opposite for the open market operation sale, right? In this case, the money supply is going to decrease. Okay, so we go to the situation, second situation. So now I want to open the graph again, or do the graph again, I should say. Real money, nominal interest rate, money demand, money supply MS1, and the economy equilibrium I1 and Q1. Okay, so this is our equilibrium scenario. So I'm trying to make this smaller, excuse me. Why can't I make this smaller? There we go. I've made this smaller. Move that to one side. And now we want to talk about the open market operation sale. Okay, open market operation sale. So in this scenario, the interest rate, the Reserve Bank probably thinks too low. People are borrowing too much money, and this is eventually going to lead to high inflation. And remember, the Reserve Bank doesn't want inflation to be high, so it wants to slow down the economy. So how it slows down the economy is to reduce the amount of money banks have to lend to customers. So how does it do it? It makes the banks buy government securities, right? So it sells government securities to the commercial banks, right? And no, in theory, nobody is forcing the commercial banks to buy the government securities from the Reserve Bank of Australia, but you don't want to mess with them. If they say buy this, they will buy it. Okay, so it's going to be the sale. So the RBA will sell. That's an S. RBA sells government securities to ANZ. Okay, so let's do ANZ. So ANZ will have a fall in reserves, right? Because they have to give some of the money they have to the RBA in exchange for the government security. Okay, so less money, right? Less money available. Okay, so this is going to be a fall in money supply. And remember, we're also going to assume no change in money demand. So what is going to happen? If your supply falls and the demand doesn't change, the price, the equilibrium price goes up. In this case, the price of money is the nominal interest rate. If there's less money available, but people still want to borrow as much as before, the interest rate will go up. Right? Can I prove that to you? Well, let me move this over there. Let me bring this over here. and find a different colored pen. Right, so we said there's going to be a fall in the money supply from MS1 to MS2. So you move up from your initial equilibrium, you move up the money demand curve to your new equilibrium. So the nominal interest rate goes up. When the nominal interest rate goes up, it's more expensive to borrow money. Businesses and consumers will borrow less money. There's less economic activity going on. And there will be a fall in the amount of money in the economy. Let's finish that story up. If I can move this back and take this back down. Right? So the interest rate goes up and so does the cash, right? So when the interest rate goes up, consumers are less likely to borrow money. Right? Because it's more expensive. You want to buy a car, the interest rate is higher. So there's going to be a fall in consumption. Businesses are less likely to borrow money because the interest rate is high, eats into their profit margin, which means eventually there is less economic activity because again, Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. As consumers borrow less and businesses borrow less, there is less economic activity going on. Remember, this is falling GDP. Less economic activity going on means you don't need as much money in the economy as before because less purchases are taking place and you end up at Q2. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.